Okay, what's the number one reason for the Eagles' 3-game slide? Also, give me your reaction to Sirianni's tone.
I think he was tired, annoyed, kind of a little regretful that he was doing this interview and all of it. So I wouldn't read more into, because if what you're asking me is his lack of passionate bang the table defense.
It hit my radar.
He actually handled it well.
I thought he handled it fine. I think Wilds
was...
would have rather he went off on him. This is outrageous. I just think it's Jesus. I mean,
win as a team.
Yeah, I mean, so I just thought he was just kind of getting through it.
Okay.
But to answer this question, biggest reason for the Eagles' 3-game slide, bad offense. And that falls primarily on the quarterback and the offensive-minded head coach. That's just, to me, what is fair and how we would treat any team in this situation. Again, it's not quite apples to apples, but if the Chiefs, who are in the midst of a slide as well, but if it was clearly because the offense is not performing, because they're averaging 18 points per game, because in the last 10 quarters they had scored 34 total points, we would say, most likely, Patrick and or Andy need to figure it out. And so, listen, this is why I think it is, while benching him for Tanner McKee is ridiculous, I would be greatly concerned if I were Philadelphia. We talk a lot about the supernatural funk and vibes and all of that.
Sure.
What is true about that year is Jalen Hurts fell off after the bye. And the defense got worse as well. But this is Jalen Hurts that season. Coming off a Super Bowl appearance, team had a good record, but it seemed like things were off leading into the bye. And then after the bye, which was in Week 10, his play fell off considerably. Jalen Hurts this year, after their bye, which was in Week 9, the high was higher and the lows have been lower. And so the team, while it has not yet lost 5 of 6, what I would say is this, Brew. This team, going into the Cowboys game, had lost twice in its previous 25 games Jalen played, and 3 times total in its previous, 27 games or whatever it was. And now they've lost 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. So I would be also concerned about how this type of losing for a team that has not looked. The last time they lost a bunch, they fell apart entirely. That's what would add to my concern.
Since he's your guy, I'm going to let you have the first shot. Is he,
I mean, I have a real answer. Against the Chargers, he turned the ball over 5 times.
He was the reason for that.
He was the reason.
Yes.
The Bears I thought, look, he wasn't great in the Bears game. He turned over there. The Bears
he had 2 touchdown passes.
Bears ran for 281 yards. It's the first time they had 2 100-yard rushers in the same game since 1985. And the Cowboys, they just, hit that cold streak.
He played well against the Cowboys.
In the first half.
He ran for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and then they had just kept on punting the ball.
Am I wrong? In the Bears game, he had 2 turnovers as well.
Do you have 2 or 1 interception?
Well, they stole the
one interception.
and they stole the tush
Oh,
push.
yes, the tush.
Yeah,
yes,
so there's a fumble and a pick.
Also, I want to play by the rules of the show. When you got the Raiders coming to town, this all feels like spinning your wheels of angst.
Yeah, look, I certainly expect them to beat Knicks Raiders. All right, but 2 years ago.
The Raiders.
Well, 2 years ago when they lost to Arizona, right? Arizona was coming into town. You thought they were going to get right, and they didn't.
Lost to the Giants.
Yeah, in that funk.
Yeah.
So, look, Jalen was the reason they lost the last game, no doubt. 5 turnovers, 31 pass rating speaks for itself. But I don't blame the whole 3-game losing streak on him. But I do agree with you. It's the offense, period. Because he was, like I said, he played fine against Dallas. He was okay. He had his issues against Chicago. But the offense, and I think Kevin Patullo, I'm putting a lot of this on him. Because last year, even though it wasn't a phenomenal offense, it was better. It was 7th in the league in scoring. Now it's 19th in the league in scoring. That's him. I put a lot of it on the offensive line just being banged up. Lane Johnson has missed the last 3 games. They've lost the last 3 games. They're 15-26 when he doesn't play. And they're great, obviously, when he does play. So that's not a sexy answer, but it's true. The offensive line struggles are an issue. And I think it's not only affecting Jalen, but it's affecting Saquon, which is their run game. So I mainly look at the line, the lack of run game because of it. And then Kevin Patullo, at some point, switching offensive coordinators every year will get to you. And
let's establish a foundational premise from the outset. The reductive assertion that Jalen Hurts single-handedly lost the game due to 5 turnovers is a grossly misleading oversimplification that actively distorts a far more complex reality. The narrative requires immediate qualification. One of the fumbles originated from a chaotic sequence where Hurts recovered a loose ball only to be instantly engulfed by defenders and stripped again, a scenario demanding a degree of contextual leniency. Furthermore, a pivotal interception was the direct byproduct of receiver Devonta Smith losing his footing and falling to the ground mid-route, erasing the intended target. Compounding this, star receiver A.J. Brown was responsible for a critical drop that caromed into a defender's hands for another interception, in addition to failing to secure a would-be touchdown pass in the end zone. To distill this multifaceted collapse into the simplistic headline, "Hurts had 5 turnovers," is to engage in journalistic malpractice. It omits the cascading failures around him. Does Jalen Hurts bear significant responsibility and require tangible improvement? Absolutely, and that point is non-negotiable. However, the complete diagnostic picture is exponentially more intricate. To move beyond surface-level critique, it is instructive to engage with analysis from respected film evaluators who prioritize scheme and execution over raw, decontextualized statistics. I will reference insights from Greg Cosell, whose breakdown provided a crucial counter-narrative to the post-game frenzy. He observed, "There are schematic elements you consistently observe from proficient passing teams this season that the Eagles had not truly incorporated. Concepts like 4-strong, flood concepts, route combinations that present the quarterback with defined, manageable reads. From a purely conceptual standpoint, this was their most sophisticated passing game of the year. It becomes facile in hindsight, after 4 turnovers, to declare he performed poorly. I did not actually believe he played a bad game. The 28-yard throw he delivered to Smith in overtime was arguably his finest pass of the entire season." Cosell's analysis unveils a fundamental, yet often overlooked truth of professional offensive football. Prolific aerial attacks are never a solo act. They are a meticulous synthesis of intelligent schematic design and proficient quarterback execution. The viewing audience and much of the media often falls into the trap of attributing completion percentage and yardage solely to quarterback prowess. In reality, a substantial majority of completions at this level are the direct result of offensive architecture that deliberately creates clear, defined throwing windows. Concepts designed so that any competent NFL passer should theoretically make the throw. The truly transcendent passes, the ones that defy schematic constraints and individual defensive excellence, constitute a smaller, more elite subset. In this specific contest, the Eagles' offense, perhaps for the first time all year, deployed a portfolio of sophisticated, NFL-caliber passing concepts that offered Hurts clearer progressions and more defined solutions. And within that improved framework, he demonstrated his capability by delivering several high-difficulty, high-accuracy throws. This symbiotic relationship between play caller and quarterback, the provision of defined throws, is a principle I have emphasized relentlessly, particularly throughout last season, as it is the bedrock upon which quarterback confidence and offensive efficiency are built. This contextual framework is not merely academic. It is essential for a fair evaluation of Jalen Hurts, because this caliber of consistent, high-level schematic support has been a glaring, persistent vacancy for the majority of the current campaign. This systemic shortcoming is catastrophically compounded by a separate, chronic issue, a fundamentally broken early down rushing attack. The Eagles statistically rank among the league's worst in the percentage of running plays that result in a loss of yardage. This consistent failure on first and second down creates a perpetual cycle of third and long situations, placing Hurts in the most difficult possible down and distance scenarios with alarming frequency. Thus, his professional reality is one of compounded adversity. He is often navigating passing concepts that lack clarity or creativity, while simultaneously operating from a tactical disadvantage created by an inefficient ground game. The job description has been made unnecessarily arduous. This discussion naturally leads to an examination of a palpable double standard within the broader NFL media ecosystem. When elite quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes encounter struggles or a losing streak, the analytical conversation, while acknowledging his need to elevate his play, almost universally expands to incorporate a holistic view of the circumstances. Discussions seamlessly include the performance of the offensive line, the defense's inability to secure stops, questionable play-calling sequences, or a lack of receiver separation. The narrative accepts that multiple variables contribute to team failure. However, when the subject shifts to Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, or other quarterbacks facing similar team-wide dysfunction, the analytical lens often contracts sharply, focusing almost exclusively on the quarterback's individual mistake tally: turnovers, missed throws, perceived hesitancy. This inconsistent application of contextual analysis is intellectually dishonest and reveals a flawed, often biased evaluative framework. If we grant the benefit of situational complexity to one player, that same standard of holistic review must be applied uniformly across the league. Let this be unequivocal. Jalen Hurts must be better. His ball security, particularly in critical moments, his consistency in progression reads, and his occasional hesitation are legitimate areas for critique and urgent improvement. That is undeniable. However, it is an equally undeniable truth that the Philadelphia Eagles' offensive operation in its totality, spanning roster construction, weekly game planning, in-game play calling, and supporting cast execution, has systematically created one of the more challenging environments for a quarterback in the NFL. The primary mandate of a modern offensive coordinator is to simplify the game for his quarterback. This does not mean dumbing it down or resorting to elementary school playbooks. It means employing intelligent design, route combinations, formations, and motions that create clarity, conflict for the defense, and defined answers for the passer. As Greg Cosell noted, even the act of simplifying the offense for a rookie like Caleb Williams is standard operating procedure, not an insult to his intelligence. Elite offensive minds like Kyle Shanahan have famously articulated this philosophy, stating their core job is to win the pre-snap and post-snap chess match through design, allowing the quarterback to function as an efficient distributor and decision-maker within a clear system. Jalen Hurts has been largely deprived of this consistent, high-level schematic partnership in 2023. The contrast to his experience under former coordinator Shane Steichen, the architect of the Eagles' Super Bowl run, is stark. Steichen's genius lay in his ability to craft game plans that defined reads, used formations to cut the field in half, and created easy, high-percentage throws that built rhythm and confidence. The current offensive operation, under a different leadership structure, has demonstrably lacked that same level of clarity, defensive conflict creation, and strategic ingenuity. The operational failures extend far beyond the passing concepts. They manifest in baffling in-game decision-making, most egregiously on the team's final game-defining possession. After successfully converting a critical fourth down to extend the drive, the logical, momentum-sustaining, and analytically sound decision was to continue leveraging the running game against a fatigued defense. The choice to instead force Hurts into a low-percentage, tightly contested end-zone fade route from an unfavorable leverage position was a profound coaching failure. It represented a lapse in situational awareness, a lack of creative pragmatism, and placed the entire burden of success on an unnecessarily difficult individual play rather than on a sustainable, chain-moving strategy. This type of decision-making actively makes the quarterback's job harder. A deeper statistical dive into the pressure Hurts faced further dismantles the simplistic turnover narrative. While he was pressured on 18 dropbacks, a high number, the more illuminating and damning metric is that he led the entire NFL in that particular game with 7 instances of pressure arriving in under 2.5 seconds. This statistic indicates instantaneous pocket collapse, where the offensive line provided no functional buffer or hold time whatsoever. His average time to throw on those specific snaps was a frantic, near-impossible 1.89 seconds. To provide stark contrast, a quarterback like Jared Goff, operating behind a more stable unit, faced similarly immediate pressure on only about 15% of his dropbacks in a comparable sample size. The reality for Hurts was that a full one-third of his passing attempts were launched from a position of immediate, unblocked duress, a rate more than double that of other established passers. This statistical context is not an excuse for poor decisions under pressure, but it is an essential explanation for the environment in which those decisions were made. It frames his performance in a radically different light than the raw, context-free turnover count suggests. When insightful film analysts like Greg Cosell and Dan Orlovsky, individuals whose work I deeply respect for its focus on tape, not tropes, express a measured, almost surprised optimism about the offensive concepts deployed in this loss, it forces a recalibration. Their expert eyes suggest that beneath the calamitous veneer of turnovers and defeat, there may have been a nascent schematic breakthrough. The introduction of legitimate, conflict-creating NFL passing concepts that had been absent all season. This raises the pivotal, internally focused question. Is this what the Eagles coaching staff sees in their private film review sessions? Do the coordinators and head coach believe they inadvertently unlocked a more effective offensive approach from a design perspective, an approach that could yield positive results if the catastrophic accompanying execution errors, from protection to catching to decision-making, are systematically cleaned up? The immediate future on the schedule provides a critical laboratory to test this hypothesis. Upcoming games against opponents like the Las Vegas Raiders and Washington Commanders present opportunities to refine these more sophisticated concepts in a, theoretically, less pressurized competitive environment. This period serves as a vital proving ground before a daunting late-season matchup against a team like the Buffalo Bills, whose own defensive vulnerabilities could be exploited by a more confident and varied attack. The path forward for the Eagles, therefore, is not a binary question of, will Jalen Hurts play better? It is a far more complex organizational inquiry. Can the Eagles' offensive leadership consistently provide Hurts with the schematic scaffolding, play-calling acumen, and supportive run game that simplifies his challenges, mitigates pressure through design, and positions him for success, rather than habitually asking him to overcome systemic disadvantages and operational failures? The romantic, albeit unlikely, scenario is that this stretch of profound frustration becomes the paradoxical catalyst for a renaissance. Perhaps an embattled coordinator discovers a sustainable rhythm, the offensive line coalesces, the run game finds a consistent identity, and the team embarks on an improbable storybook run to the postseason. The unpredictable, narrative-driven nature of the NFL always allows for such possibilities. However, in the clear light of rational analysis, a fair and comprehensive evaluation of the Philadelphia Eagles' current predicament demands we consciously move beyond the lazy, click-driven headline of 5 turnovers. It compels us to engage with the intricate, interconnected web of failures, from foundational offensive line play to the creativity, or lack thereof, in play design, to the situational awareness in play calling, to the execution by skill players, and finally, to the quarterback's own decision-making under often impossible circumstances. Jalen Hurts owns a significant, undeniable share of that responsibility. But portraying him as the sole proprietor of this crisis is a diagnostic failure that prevents any real understanding or meaningful solution. Those are my comprehensive, detailed, and context-driven reflections on the matter. I am genuinely interested in engaging with your analysis. In your evaluation, what stands as the predominant catalyst for the Philadelphia Eagles' pronounced struggles? Do you perceive the core issue as a regression in Jalen Hurts' individual play, a fundamental failure in offensive scheme and play-calling philosophy, a critical breakdown in execution by the supporting cast, or an inseparable combination of all these factors? How do you personally weigh the significant contextual pressures, both schematic and physical, against his undeniable and urgent need for improved ball security and decision consistency? Please share your nuanced perspectives in the comments section below. I read every single comment with genuine attention. Whether you find yourself in agreement with this multifaceted assessment or believe the analytical focus should rest more squarely on the quarterback's shoulders, I welcome a substantive, layered, and respectful discussion. Let's debate the intricacies, dissect the film, and confront the complexities. But ultimately, let's appreciate the formidable challenge of accurately diagnosing a high-profile NFL offense in a state of palpable crisis. If you value this style of meticulous, context-rich, and film-informed football commentary, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are diligently building a dynamic and thoughtful community here, dedicated to elevating intelligent sports discourse beyond superficial narratives, and I would be truly honored to have you participate. Don't forget to like this video if you found the analysis compelling, as it genuinely assists with visibility and allows these nuanced conversations to reach a wider, more engaged audience. Thank you for your time, your patience, and for engaging with this detailed analysis.